The objective of this lesson is to understand that a percent is a rate per hundred. Students have previously learned that when using hundredths grids, it takes 100 centimeter cubes to cover a flat. Each cube has the value of 1/100th, which can be written as a fraction, 1/100, as a decimal, 1/100th, or as a ratio. Ratios can be written with a colon, as a fraction, or using the word to. We can also write this quantity as a percent. Percent means per hundred or for every hundred and is usually notated with the percent sign. Cent is an abbreviation of the Latin word centum, meaning hundred. 1 per hundred is another way of saying 1 part out of every 100 parts, or 1% of the whole. It's interesting to note other words with the root cent. Century, which is 100 years, centennial, which is a 100th anniversary, centimeter, which is 1/100th of a meter, and centipede, which means 100 feet. This hundredth grid shows 74 1/100ths and can be written as 74/100, 74 hundredths, or 74%. All of these notations are different ways of describing the same quantity. This hundredths grid can represent a real-world situation. A store has 100 stuffed animals for sale. 74 have sold. What percentage of the animals are still available? We can write the equation 100 minus 74 equals x. Solving for x, we find x equals 26. 74% of the animals were sold, and 26% of the animals are still available. If a student takes a test with 100 questions and gets 78 questions correct, the student has correctly answered 78% of the questions. A percent can be determined from a grid shaded in any pattern, not just top to bottom or left to right. What percent of this grid is colored? That's right, 30 out of 100, or 30%. What percent of this grid is green? That's right, 20 out of 100, or 20%. Let's work on another real-life problem. There are a variety of charitable organizations who accept donations to help those in need. Individuals are advised to research a charity before donating to see how the funds will be used. A Charity Review Council recommends that charities spend a minimum of 65% of the donated funds to help those in need, while the remaining funds can be used for administrative costs. We are going to model this problem and create a table to help us understand how much money will actually go to help those in need. First, let's color how much will go to the charity in red and how much will go to the administrative costs in blue. We have learned that 65% means 65 per 100, so let's color 65 boxes red. We will color the rest blue. It looks like we colored 35 blocks blue. Now let's fill in the table to help us understand what that means. We know that the funds are going to two areas, those in need and administrative cost. We were given the percent, which is 65. The rest needs to add to 100, which is 35. The part-to-whole ratio is 65 to 100 and 35 to 100. So we know that if we donate $100, $65 will go to those in need and $35 will go to administrative costs. What if $200 were donated? How much would go to those in need and how much would go to administrative costs? Let's try it. Since there is $200, we will need two 100ths grids. Those in need are colored red and the administrative costs are colored blue. The percentage is the same, 65% of those in need and 35% for administrative costs. What about the part-to-whole ratio? This will be different because we are donating $200, which becomes the whole. We colored 65 plus 65 red, which is 130 out of 200, and 35 plus 35 blue, which is 70 out of 200. So we see that $130 will go to those in need and $70 will go to administrative costs. Is 65 to 100 equivalent to 130 to 200? Yes, the ratio 130 to 200 can be partitioned in half to get the ratio 65 to 100. So it's still the same percent, 65 out of every 100. The objective for this lesson was to understand that a percent is a rate per 100. We met this objective by explaining that percent means for every 100. We modeled percents by using the hundredths grid, a table, and real-world scenarios.